Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Is this on? Okay, great. It's June 6th, and I would be remiss if we didn't remind everybody that this is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. My father was born in 1920 in a house behind the mill, so he actively served in the Second World War. And it's something that we remember all the time. He had a junior hockey club in 1939. He was a member of a junior hockey team in 1939. And the front row of that hockey team was all affected by the war, including his best friend, Joe Lone, who was the goaltender of that team, who lost his life in the subsequent battles in Normandy. So it is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. In some of the remarks that I'll be talking about, we'll talk about the geopolitical conditions that exist right now in the world. And I quite frankly am concerned that some of us have forgot why we needed to have a D-Day, and we're not aware of some of the geopolitical conditions that are affecting us right here today in this room. Having said that, this is a very exciting time for Timmins, for Northern Ontario, for Canada, for all communities. 3,250. What does that number mean? We've got a bunch of mining guys here and gals. 3,250. What's that mean? Anybody know what's the significance of that number? 3,250. Anybody know? Price of gold today in Canadian dollars. Randy knows that. He's a prospector. He's in tune with what's happening in the mining sector today. $3,250 an ounce Canadian today. Are we excited? We got to be excited. You don't sound like you're excited. Now remember, the biggest job I have here today at this forum is keeping you people awake after lunch. So I'll try my best to make sure that happens. This is a very exciting time, as I said during my opening remarks yesterday, in all sectors, whether it's critical minerals, whether it's gold, whether it's base metals. It's just our time. I said this last year. There's a buzz in the room, and there's a buzz in the conference. Glenn doesn't have the final numbers, but he assures me this is the biggest conference ever. I've been involved in this for quite some time, but I think this is about 30 years that Glenn's been involved in this. He publishes an incredible I guess twice or three times a month, quarterly. Okay. A fantastic magazine that he puts out, talking about all of the projects that are all in Northern Ontario. Of course, we're talking today focusing on Northeastern Ontario, and of course, the subject is the projects in the pipeline. Now, you've been hearing from many people all morning, perhaps yesterday as well. So you're well versed on all of the projects. I'll attempt to tell you. We'll tell you some of the things that we're doing here within the province, within our government, to ensure that we stay as busy as we are right now. There's another part of the community that's got to be excited too, and it's got to be the individuals that are associated with the learning facilities, whether it's College Boreal or Northern College. I said yesterday, when you took a look around at all of the exhibits that we have, this should mean 1,000 students for Northern College, 1,000 students in College Boreal, because the industry is changing in front of us. I find it very encouraging to go through those exhibits to see what industry is doing to make sure that they can respond to the challenge in our mining sector. It's a tremendously, you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I want to compliment you on your efforts. As I said many times, we have the minerals today to fuel tomorrow's needs. Nickel. I talked about that yesterday briefly. We need every pound of nickel we can produce, whether it's from Sudbury, whether it's from Timmins, whether it's from the Ring of Fire. I told you we don't want the nickel from Indonesia. It doesn't fit Ontario's model. It's fired with coal, and the tailings goes right out to the sea. That's wrong. It's counterproductive. If we're going to participate fully in the EV revolution, the materials have to be sourced ethically, responsibly, in an environmental fashion that everybody's proud of, that's supported globally. We don't want the cobalt to come from Congo either. We want it from Northern Ontario, Northeast Ontario. That's who we are. I've said many times what the definition of sustainability is. It's meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of the next generation. And that's what we do as miners here in Canada, but especially in Northern Ontario, because I simply believe we are the best miners. I believe that because I was raised, I've seen the changes in the mining industry over the decades. I was part of that change of how we operated to how we operate now. We have operations that don't even discharge water. We have operations where, in fact, I was just at the Victoria mine last week in Sudbury, and their water treatment facility is so good that the Ministry of the Environment came back and said, you've got to add a few more minerals into it. Because it was really and truly, that's how good our industry is. You know, it was like they were discharging distilled water. They said, no, the water's too good. You've got to put more minerals back into the water. That's how good we are. We've got this nailed. We've had this nailed for quite some time, and I'm the individual that stands up and says all the time about how good we are. Collectively, we've got to raise our voices. We've got to be louder. We've got to carry the day, because it's not going to happen effectively as it should unless everybody stands up and says, this is who we are, this is what we can do. So in fact, we have the full support of everyone. I'll tell you how things have changed. We've just had recent polls where 70% of the people now that responded to this questionnaire, this poll, said they have the support of the mining industry. 76% of the people that responded to this survey said that they want more mining. Why? Because now it's understood that the electronic revolution can't happen unless you mine. The mines, you have to get the minerals out of the ground to use your cell phones. If you're going to fully function within the aerospace industry, the minerals have to come out of the ground. The technology is changing all the time, and we're getting better and better and better. So folks, what's happening around us today is very important. And everybody in this room is very important because you're involved with this industry. I've said this many times, it'll be good, and it has been good for every community across Ontario, including the Indigenous communities. Everybody understands that nothing is going to happen without the Indigenous participation as full partners. And that's what we do. Take a look at Cote Lake. Take a look at that has full employment by Matawagami First Nations and Flying Post. Full employment. TTN and how they responded with Canada Nickel. This is just a couple of them. I served with Wagashing Resources Incorporated, and I was very proud to serve with that community. Incredible leadership. And that's what we have to focus on. Trust is the hardest thing to get, to develop, to earn. It's also the easiest thing to lose. Collectively, we're all obligated to make sure that mining flourishes as it should. So it is a very exciting time. The critical mineral strategy that we announced was announced to do one thing: to fulfill the supply gaps that were discovered really during COVID. It was like we woke up one day and said, geez, we don't producing anything. It all comes from someplace else. Extensive delays. You couldn't get an automobile. And that's what we're working hard to correct, to create the table so that, in fact, our supply chain, in fact, is full from domestically Ontario-produced minerals. We're well on track to do that. Fantastic projects, as you've heard all day, surround Timmins. It's a great honor for me to talk to you today about some of these projects. In 2023, Ontario produced approximately $6.4 billion worth of critical minerals, and critical mineral exploration investments totaled $349 million. There were 221 critical minerals exploration projects reporting activity in Ontario, an increase of 18% from 2022 to 2023. There are 124 active lithium exploration projects in Ontario, an increase of 143% from 2022. These numbers are no accident. They are the result of the work we are doing to attract investment and to support the sector. Obviously, there's more work to do in the mining sector. I want to talk briefly about the Ontario Junior Exploration Program because, as Randy knows, it starts with exploration. It starts with the exploration. It's a very, maybe if you're from Timmins in Northern Ontario, maybe it's intuitive. Oh yeah, okay, it starts with exploration. It's not obvious to everybody that it starts with exploration. So you have to set the table. And what we've done with the Junior Exploration Program is working. Because right now, in Ontario, we are the largest exploration spend in Canada, right here in Ontario. So whatever we're doing, it's working. It's working. We have, since we've launched this program, we have funded 133 projects totaling approximately $19.4 million. So that's what this does. It encourages exploration. And Timmins, one of the things that we're renowned for is a very vibrant and knowledgeable exploration group. I hope some of you have a chance to go through the prospectors tent, which is at the back of the exhibits here, back over towards the McIntyre headframe. Take a look at what people are thinking about. Take a look at what they're doing, how some of these projects have developed with really brilliant people doing the exploration. It's phenomenal. You think about Canada Nickel. A few years ago, geez, that's what it was. It was just empty land. I did a tour just yesterday around Canada Nickel, and it's phenomenal what's been done over a 4-year period, a 5-year period. It's amazing what they've discovered. It starts with brilliant people looking at things differently. The mining sector in and around Timmins, we've been here a long time. As I said, my dad was born in 1920 in a house behind the mill. We've been here a long time, and still we're making new discoveries in the gold sector. We're still finding new discoveries with nickel and critical minerals and lithium and large flake graphite deposits. It's the best place in the world to look for minerals, right here in Timmins, because we've got the best people, some of the best people. I'm not going to argue with anybody from Sudbury or other places as well, but certainly Timmins doesn't take a backseat to any of these other locations. It's probably the only jurisdiction that has the endowment of precious metals and critical minerals in the world. We've got it in here, right here in Timmins. Usually, at this particular time in my talk, I talk about why I became involved in politics. It's because I wasn't happy what I saw in Northern Ontario. The populations were declining. There was a funk in the industry. A previous premier actually said, our economy isn't going to be defined by individuals that are standing over a hole in the ground. Some hole in the ground. It's a world-class hole in the ground. We're proud of those holes in the ground. We're the best at digging those holes in the ground. But, you know, so I don't know about you. I got a little angry about that. I really did. When they tore down the smelter at Kid Creek, the world's best smelter, 900 jobs, not a whimper, a couple of protests. I couldn't imagine that happening anywhere. Now our copper and other metals have to go over to the Horn smelter, which is one of the world's dirtiest smelters. How did we allow that to happen? Most importantly, we can't let that happen again anywhere, especially in Timmins. What else have we done? What else have we talked about? We've talked the Critical Mineral Innovation Fund, because we're looking for a lot of different minerals. So we have to know how to find them, essentially. But when we find them, how do we process it? What type of processing is going to be required to make sure that these minerals are going to be profitable, that they're actually going to be ore? You know, really and truly, I was involved at a high-grade zinc deposit in New Brunswick. And it was, by high-grade zinc, it was about 11% zinc. And we could never get, I wasn't actually involved, didn't own any part of that with Breakwater Resources at that time. But over two times of time to make this profitable, they had spent over $100 million and never got the recovery above 25%. 11% zinc deposit that wasn't profitable because you couldn't process it. That's why that innovation fund is so important. Canada Nickel was the participant of some of those funds as they did the research on sequestering carbon. There's other ones here I want to talk about as well that have participated in the fund, and not only just in the mineral exploration and processing. We've invested in companies to like the bucket shop to produce lightweight buckets, applications that will assist the mining industry. So we set the table in strategic fashions to ensure that the mining sector will always be successful. I'll say it again, it's our duty, it's our obligation. We've got the mineral wealth, we've got the geological potential, we've got the geological signature. And every time a prospector goes out there and that gets some money and drills another structure that's new, we have taken another step towards securing a future. There's so much new to be discovered. In northeastern Ontario, it's a lot of this is in the too tough bucket. It's just there's a lot of overburden. It's tough to do. Danny's sitting over there. He knows how difficult it is to explore in his and develop in his projects. It's a lot of overburden. You got to have the funds. You got to be in the ground. You got to find the structure. You got to do I think you're doing a bulk sample right now, Dan. That's how it's done, but very little outcrop in some of these deposits, especially as you move to the north. It's difficult. So you have to use science and technology. You need money to do that. And that's what this government does. We set the table and we invest in the critical areas of exploration and development to ensure Our best explorers and developers are in the game and always will be. One of the first things we had to do, when I became the Minister of Mines, was redo the Mining Act. Cote Lake is a perfect example. I use it all the time. 15 or 17 years to permit a mine. How wrong is that? We've got an urgent need to develop our mines. We just had a presentation from the federal government. They have to take 10 years off their permitting, and they have to build our mines 5 times faster. With that urgency, we had to redo the Mining Act to ensure that these mines would get permitted quicker. Very proud of that act, because there's not a word in the old act that's changed in the new act in relation to 2 very important points. Number 1, the duty to consult. It's the same. The second part, Ontario's world-class environmental standards. So we're doing the same type of job, the same quality, only faster. The mining bureaucracy has to work at the pace of business, and that's what the Building More Mines Act did. I want to talk briefly about the Ring of Fire. One of the things as well, at PDAC, we had a fantastic PDAC. It was very busy. We had a great announcement with two communities, Webequie and Martin Falls, investing money directly into those communities so that they would be ready to participate in the expansion that will happen in those lands. The assessment, the environmental assessment, is going very well. As you know, they're directed by the First Nations. They're on time. They're on track, and the Ring of Fire is a generational opportunity, not only just for Northern Ontario or Canada, but globally for all communities. We continue to set the table to ensure that project will progress. It started with the Ontario government announcing $1 billion. It didn't go into the mining companies. $1 billion built capacity for the First Nations communities. Broadband, health facilities, was committed to ensure that prosperity of the First Nations communities would improve. It's what we do. I'm very proud of that. When we talk about the state of mining in Canada, I'll give you a couple of figures. Ontario's mining sector is a pillar of our economy and annually contributes to almost $13 billion to Ontario's GDP while employing the largest number of Indigenous peoples of any sector. In 2023, Ontario was the first in Canada for mineral exploration investment, totaling $950 million, which I've just told you. Of this, approximately $599 million targeted for gold and $349 million targeted for critical minerals exploration. Ontario's leading mine supply and service sector produces more than $10 billion worth of mining supplies and services every year. $10 billion. These are significant numbers. It includes over 1,400 companies and employs more than 40,000 people, 23,000 of them which are located right here in Northern Ontario. So mining is critical to the economy. Ontario just cracked the top 10 list in the Fraser Institute 2023 annual survey of the best mining jurisdictions in the world. We weren't on that list before. We are now, and we will move up on that list as we continue to improve the environment for mining. This is great news when I talk about the survey of 71% of the Ontarians wanted the government to encourage more mining investment and jobs in mining. And as I said, 76% of Ontarians want to see more mining. So this is great news, but as I said, we know there is more work to do. I want to talk briefly about the mining projects in Timmins. Again, I've seen it with my own eyes. the transformation in the mining sector in and around Timmins. I've mentioned Cody Lake Mine. I've talked about Canada Nickel Mine, Canadian Nickel. I've talked about Agnico Eagle. We've got, of course, Lakeshore. All are involved with billion-dollar projects, building billion-dollar projects in and around this area. But we've got lithium deposits north of Lake Abitibi. We've got niobium just south of James Bay. We've got niobium in the Chapleau area as well. We've got large flake graphite in the area. We have lithium deposits south of Hearst. We've got phosphates north of Hearst. We've got new gold deposits north of Campus Casing. We've got graphite projects, again, west of Hearst. And we're just starting to scratch the surface as we explore these opportunities. As I said, this is our time. We've got the world's best mining companies. Agnico is a tremendous mining company. And if you've taken a look at, if you've been through Kirkland Lake, if you've taken a look at Detour Lake, 80,000 tons a day, half a gram. Unbelievable what they're doing there. 80,000 tons a day with a 1-to-1 strip ratio. That's 160,000 tons of material a day. Phenomenal. I'll go back to Cote Lake. Their whole fleet is autonomous. We're talking yesterday with some mining companies, very encouraged with CAT, what CAT's doing, developing a fleet that's going to be all electric, no diesel. Again, if we're going to be part of the EV revolution, it's counterproductive if our carbon footprint is larger than the gain it takes to produce these minerals. And everybody's on the same page. We're all striving for the same thing. There's again so many exciting projects to the east of us, to the west of us, to the north of us, to the south of us. There's too many, really, quite frankly, to mention them all. I'm sure you'll be talking about them and seeing them throughout this show. Very exciting time. We know, we've always said that mining is cyclical. There's booms and there's busts. What we're going through here now, is generational. It's generational because the times are different. The geopolitical situation globally is different. There's huge competitions with the Western democracies and Russia and China. We see that. We see that reflected in the price of gold. What was it, Randy? 3,250 in Canadian? We see this as we rush to fill the supply chain that it is currently filled by the Russian and Chinese. And that's the hole in the US's supply chain that we can fill right here in Northern Ontario with these projects around us. We have an incredible strength and lever because of that. What better partner than the US, than Ontario and Northern Ontario to secure these minerals? As I said yesterday, our lens, when we talk about the critical mineral strategy, or critical minerals, is all about moving from fossil fuels to the battery technology. In the States, they want to do this as well, but they also see their lens is national security. They cannot afford to have any other minerals, their critical minerals, sourced anything other than other first world safe jurisdictions what better place to secure this than right here in Northern Ontario, Northeastern Ontario, Northwestern Ontario, but Ontario. This is our future. It won't be cyclical. There is such a requirement to fill these needs. And as I said over and over again, every single community will benefit from this. Because as we secure these minerals, we know how to do it. We know how to do it sustainably, ethically. Sustainably, I've given you the definition of that already. Our Mining Act reflects that. The two most important points that we didn't change, the duty to consult and Ontario's world-class environmental regulations. We're on solid ground with our Mining Act, and we're in solid ground with our mineral exploration endowment and our communities and our talent base that we have right here in Timmins in Northern Ontario. As I've said many times, our future is now. This is our time. But we have to work together to make sure that it happens. So folks, it's been a real pleasure to be with you. Nobody's fallen asleep, so I must have done my job okay. Thank you very much.